Hi, Shirley. Hey, everybody. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Rick. Good to see you, Yvette. Yay, everybody's coming in. I can't believe we're in our last day together. Let me just keep letting people in. Simona, good to see you. Chrome Oxide. How's everybody? Devon, lovely to see you as always. Good morning, good evening, and good night, indeed. Cool. So, paths to publication, that's our big thing for today. So, I was wondering, just out of curiosity, does everybody here have an idea of, if you haven't published already, I know some of you already have or are in the process of, but what your sort of preference is? Is it that you want to go traditional, hybrid, self-publish? Have you got a feeling yet for the way that you'd like to go, or is it kind of still up in the air and you're still trying to decide what is the best route for you? Yvette is saying traditional, self-publishing. Devon, I know that's you're well on your way with that. Marilyn is self-publishing. Rick's not sure yet. Shelley's saying, I would love for both, to be honest. And aren't we lucky that we're in a time that we're in and you can do both? Rita's saying traditional or hybrid. Yeah, a bit of a mix all there already. Yvette's done self-publishing. Simona's saying the children's picture book I'm self-publishing, but not sure what I'll do with my full-length novels. Well, hopefully today it might just give you a little bit of a sense of what might be the right next step. Cindy, thank you. I always get nervous. Do you remember we were talking about on Monday, we were talking about how it's nerve-wracking when someone you know reads your books. So I always feel like that too. I'm like, oh. But thank you. You're kind to say you're loving it so far. Thanks very much. Ramona's saying start with self or a small press, a small e-press, in fact. Yeah. So many options now, so many options. Let me just let Judy in. Right, well, let's crack on, shall we? Let me bring the right section up so that you should be seeing this bit. And let me share. Okay. Right, we should all be good now. Day five. Okay, novel or day five. Let's go. So just a review of where we've come, how far we've come. We've started with those fears of even putting the book on paper, taking those ideas and actually putting it on paper, and then how we can put it down on paper, getting feedback, editing, the steps that we go through to make this product, this book, as good as we can make it. And now we're at the stage where we're thinking about, okay, how are we going to let people read this? What way are they going to have the fabulous opportunity to read this? So let's start with traditional publishing. That seems as good a place as any to start. So you'll be familiar, I'm sure, most of you, with the idea of going traditional. So through one of the, and when we say traditional, we are meaning one of the kind of bigger houses, the ones that are very much entrenched in the you know, you have a hardback that you release, and then a few months later you have the paperback that you release, the trade edition, and then there's the airport editions, and then there's also the audio editions as well. So very much that kind of traditional model, where you have to have an agent in order to submit your book to these guys. They only take it from they don't take unsolicited manuscripts. So one of the sort of big distinguishers with this is that the publisher kind of pays for everything up front, and that's nice for, well, it certainly feels nice in the beginning for the writer. So they're going to pay you in advance of however much it might be, and then they take the risk on making sure that the manuscript is the way that they want to see it written, that they get all the editing done. They will have the design, you know, the formatting, the insides of the book cover. They will handle, I've put marketing here, they will handle some marketing. And they obviously they handle the distribution of that. What I will say about, let's just talk about the advance first of all, just so that everybody understands how that works. So the advance, you will get paid, let's say they pay it to you over the course of 1 year. And so whatever that agreed advance is, they will divide that up into, say, 3 or 4 sections. So you don't get it all at once, but they'll pay it over the course of a year. Now, then they will pay for everything else to happen, all the editing, the designing, all of that jazz will happen. And then when it goes out for sale, you won't see any royalties until that advance has been paid back. So they want to recoup all the money that they have paid out on this book before you start to earn any royalties. So it's just good to kind of know that. And if you know that in advance, that helps you make a decision about whether that's a good choice for you. Now, when it comes to marketing, and I think this is one of the reasons a lot of people feel that they would rather do the traditional route, is because they don't want to do the marketing. That feels scary, even more scary than writing the book, and very, very daunting. And it feels very businessy and not why you came into writing in the first place. For the vast majority of debut novelists and even kind of mid-list, I would say, yeah, mid-list novelists as well, the publisher are not really going to do much marketing for you. You are still expected to do a big portion of that yourself. Now, I don't know if you've noticed that in your local bookstores, do you see a lot of writers come through the bookstores? They come and they promote the new release of their book. And they're hopeful that not only are you going to buy the new release in hardback, but that you might be so inclined to buy the previous books as well in paperback and have them signed and have that special feeling. Those people are a lot of the time organizing it themselves, especially at the smaller bookstores. In the bigger bookstores, it might well be that the publisher is doing that. But this is something a lot of people have to organize themselves. So you do still need to do a little bit of marketing, if not the majority of your marketing yourself, unless your book takes fire and you become, you know, the overnight sensation. Then they will definitely be paying for you to do your worldwide tours and all the rest of it. The only other kind of the exception to that is if your book does hit the zeitgeist, that your book is just what is needed in the market right now, and there's an auction for it. So your agent is putting out to Penguin, to HarperCollins, to Simon & Schuster, and they all love it, and then they all start bidding to buy the rights to it. Then you get a lot of buzz. And then they will definitely, because they're paying through, you know, they'll be paying a lot for the book, they'll be paying a lot of for your book. So then they will really want to make sure that they get that money back, and they will really put money into the marketing for you. I'm just trying to think of the name of the book. There was quite an interesting book last year that came out, sort of a time traveling thriller spy novel written by a debut novelist. And it was quite an interesting read, but it's not much use to you if I can't remember the name of it. But that was a case where it went to auction and it was bid. And then, you know, she's doing all the big shows and being interviewed by all the big press. So it does happen. I don't want to say that it never happens, but it's not a guarantee. And so I just want you to know how the royalties come and the sort of marketing that can be offered to you. And as it says there at the bottom, it's hugely competitive, and you've got to get that agent first. And just being aware that just being aware of what you're up against and that everybody's doing it. So if you are sure that you want to go traditional, then know that you might be in it for the long game, and it's not about you. And it's not even about your book necessarily. It is just about what's happening in the market, how things are going, and all the rest. So there's so many other factors involved. So I just want to set that scene for you without making it sound too depressing, because it does happen. You can hit the zeitgeist. You can be the right book at the right time. Event, I can see you're saying that there are Canadian publishers that do accept unsolicited manuscripts, and they tend to be smaller presses. So that's slightly different. Unless it's different in Canada, I don't think it is too much. There are places like if you're in South Africa, for example, and I think if you are in Australia or New Zealand, you're much more able to go direct to one of the bigger houses, because it's just such a smaller market. They just don't have the same approach that we do in the UK and that the States have. So they are traditional in that they do things in the traditional way. If you're going direct to the publisher, that will be more of a small press. And listen, small presses can be marvelous. They can be really, really good. Because they are only publishing a few books a year, not many books a year, if they take on your book, they love your book. They absolutely love it, and they will do the best that they can for it to be seen and to get out into the world, and really, really support you. There's a lot to be said for the smaller houses. A friend of mine just published a novel at the end of last year, which is a great novel, and lots of people loved it. She submitted to all the big houses, or her agent did on her behalf, and they said they liked it, they loved it, but they had no idea how to sell this book. It just was a very dark book. So they passed on it, but she found the right small press that does take these different types of books, and not the kind of bestsellers that you'll see on the front tables of Barnes and Noble and Waterstones. And they love it. They love her writing, they love the story, and they got right behind it. So it is worth applying to these guys as well. Cool. Okay, so hybrid publishing. So hybrid publishers work in a very similar way to the traditional publishers, in that they they'll do the hardback, then the paperback, and they'll handle the distribution and some of the marketing for you. But the biggest difference for us as the authors is that you will pay the publisher for whichever services you choose to take from them. So this means that you're sharing the cost of producing this book, of producing this product that's going to go out to market. So a hybrid won't always say yes to your book. There's still, in the good ones, there's still a sort of slight gatekeeping to it, because they want to maintain their name as well. They want to know that they're publishing books that they can be proud of. So there'll be a little bit of gatekeeping. But if they want to go with you, then you will pay for certain services, and they will pay for some as well. So you're in it together. What's really good about this is that as the author, you have that creative control, and you keep the rights to your own work as well. So that's always very, very good. Just trying to remember about pricing, actually. I should have looked that up. Pricing, I think you have more control over. In traditional, obviously, you don't have a say on how much your book is sold for, but I think in hybrid, you do have more of a say. And so this can be a really cost-effective way to access the sort of traditional sphere and the traditional resources and an approach, but without the same level of gatekeeping, without the same level of competitiveness. You'll hear some people say that if you have to pay a publisher anything at all, then you walk away, that it's a scam, that it's dreadful. I disagree with that. I don't think that is entirely true. And I think the people who say that probably come very much from the old school traditional space. There are very, very good, reputable, honest hybrid publishing houses out there who are, and a lot of the people who work there, who've started them, have come from traditional and been frustrated that a lot of good writers aren't getting through because they don't fit, because the zeitgeist isn't right for that book at that time. or that the publisher doesn't have the means to spend time with the writer and develop the writer. And so they've kind of gone this way. Brooke Warner is a really good example of that. Alexa Bigwarf as well has set up a few presses because she wants to help people get good books out there. So it's not a cut and dry thing that if you have to pay money, then they are disreputable. But you do need to do a bit of research to kind of find one that feels right for you and that you're happy to pay for it. And you've seen good testimonials, and you've maybe, you know, talked to people who have worked with that hybrid publisher and it's all been good, and you feel confident about making that investment with them. So it's not black and white, is what I would say on that. And then, of course, there's self-publishing, which, whether we like it or not, we sort of have Amazon to thank for this explosion in well, just this explosion in being able to access and sell our books and make readers happy. So this is the total opposite of the fully traditional space, in that you're the writer, you're the publisher, you're the marketer, you are the business person, you're wearing all of the hats, which can feel very intimidating. For some of you, you'll be like, no way, do not want to do any of that. That just sounds awful. And some of you will be like, oh, no, that sounds interesting and exciting. And I'd like to sort of get more into that space. So you publish, you write, publish, you distribute your own books independently through the online distributors. So obviously Amazon being top there, but then you've got Nook as well. You've got Kobo in Canada. It's a big popular one in Canada. There are thousands of really small distributors across the world. So it's not just like in the UK, we tend to just use Amazon. Canada, I think, mostly uses Kobo, and I think America uses mostly Apple. I think that's the top one. But outside of these kind of three big territories, there are so many distributors that we've never even heard of, but we can have access to, who will distribute across Europe, across Asia, across India and China and the whole world. So it's amazing that this whole industry has grown. For those of us who like to be in control, then you get full creative control, obviously, and of course you get all of the rights for all of, you know, English language translations, or, you know, audio, whatever format you choose to produce the book in. Then you handle all the costs as well, and the tasks that you need to do to outsource them. So all of the costs of the editing and formatting, if you choose to hire someone to do that, the costs of getting good book cover, if you're like me and not good at graphic design and need someone to help you do that. And then it's up to you to sort of upload it to, you can either upload it to all of the distributing websites individually, but also now, you know, where there's a job needing done, someone will fill it. There is now aggregators. So for example, Draft2Digital or Overdrive, Publish Drive, sorry, you can upload your book with them and they will distribute it to all of the other online distributors. So there's ways of making it as easy as possible. And of course, royalties, the all-important royalties, you will get a higher percentage of that royalty, but where you pay is in time and in learning and understanding the process and being a business. And I do want to say that whether you go traditional, hybrid, or indie, you become a business. So once your book is published and people start buying it, you become a business. And we kind of like to describe ourselves as authorpreneurs, which I quite enjoy. But it does mean that you will have, you know, any monies that come in, you need to account for, and just be aware of tax. You'll need to pay tax on that, because it's an income. You are now an earning author. Doesn't matter if it's a few pence or a few cents or hundreds of thousands. You're a business and you are making an income from your books, and that is wonderfully exciting. But don't get caught out. Just make sure you know that you've got your taxes to pay on that. But I was sort of thinking about royalties earlier, and in the traditional space, so because the publisher is taking all of the gamble, the financial gamble on it, Once you've paid off that advance, then it works out at about, you'll earn about 7% on every sale. And so if you've got a book, what's $7.99 or $8.99, something like that, you'll earn about sort of 50 pence, 70 cents, something like that. So it's not a high percentage. Obviously, if you become the next Harlan Coben or the next J.K. Rowling, that's fine, because you're going to have more money than you'll ever know what to do with. But it is a very low percentage. Whereas if you were to distribute, say, through Amazon, you can earn up to 70% of the sale price. So it's a very, very big difference, and it's something to be considered as well. Okay, so let's just think about author platform now, which is a phrase that we see bandied around a lot, and it is an important part of any author's environment now. So it doesn't matter, again, if you're traditional or indie, you want to have a platform of some description. Now, it can be really, really simple, and it can just be a simple one-page website where that you can do on Wix or one of the other Squarespace. So it's just somewhere that somebody who hears about you, reads your book, wants to know more about you, because you know what we're like, we always want to know about the author. They can just go to that, and it doesn't have to be detailed. It can be a little bit about a photograph, a little bit about you, your interests, something sort of personal that the reader feels they're getting to know you, maybe some inspiration behind that first book in particular. And it can be just that, you know, and it's up to you how much you want to share about your private life, about your kids and your family or your pets or whatever. Just one page, sometimes that's all it needs to be. If you enjoy using social media, one of the platforms, then by all means have an account there. And for indie authors in particular, mailing lists is a big, big thing. I've done some sessions on mailing lists before, and if that's something that you would like me to do again, I can do that in the future. But mailing lists is an indie author's best friend. So that's where you ask people to sign up to your mailing list, and then you have their email address, and you keep in touch with them on a regular basis. Just let them know what you're up to. And then when you've got a new book coming out, you can email them and let them know. Because they know you and have been following you, they are the people most likely to buy your new book and become your super fans. So it's that's the most simple way of kind of building your author platform. But a website, certainly just one page would be great. Social media, if you like it. And then if you're going indie, be thinking about your mailing lists. But other ways that you can build your brand, your name, for people to get to know you and the types of books that you write. You know, other people who have blogs, you can maybe do a guest post. So if you're writing historical fiction, for example, you know, there's so much you can write about in terms of blogs about the period in which you're writing about and then how it ties into your book. If you're writing sci-fi fantasy, I mean, fans of sci-fi and fantasy love origin stories. They love all the kind of sideways stuff that goes with all of these stories. If you are an artist at all and you've got the kind of art that goes alongside your books, people go crazy for that as well. So these are things that you can post about on other people's blogs. I don't recommend that you start your own blog. It's a lot of work. Blogs are a lot of work. If you've run a blog in the past, you know this already. If you've never run a blog, I don't recommend it, because you have to manage it and maintain it and keep it going and keep it updated and let people know about your new posts. That time would be better spent doing the writing of your books. If further down the line you feel it's something you want to do, go for it. But in the early days, particularly if you're writing fiction, you don't need to do it. Another thing that you can do is run ads to build your platform as well, to build your kind of that people know you. I wouldn't recommend doing this until you've got 3 or 4 books, because what you're hopefully going to do is run an ad to one of those books and then people will hopefully read it, like what you're doing, and then they'll buy your next book and your next book. This does work particularly well for series if you're writing series, but I don't. I write standalone books and have found it to work still well on that. So but wait till you've got a few books in your collection so that you've got somewhere to send them to after they've bought book one. I've mentioned this twice. Build your email list through giveaways and free content. So again, if you're an indie, there are different websites that you can give away books for free, which you might think, why would you do that? So that you can get reviews. You give your book to people in return for hopefully positive reviews that will boost your stars, boost your ratings, and people will kind of take a chance on a new author who's got some good reviews. And there were specific sort of websites like Story Origin and BookFunnel that are aimed specifically at indie authors. And then those indie authors sort of advertise and share with those people who specifically like indie books. So there's this whole kind of reading audience that don't really go to Waterstones or to Barnes and Noble. They love reading indie books, and they read on Kindle and ebooks, and that's what they go for. So so it's interesting, actually, the whole e-publishing phenomenon has not just opened up things for authors, but actually for readers as well. I wouldn't have predicted that. And then you can too later, if this takes your fancy, you can go to sort of share what you know and what you've learned through writing, or the genre that you write about at conferences, and by writing articles. And again, it's just another way of getting your name out there and building your platform so that people think about you if they're thinking of thriller or sci-fi or how to write a book. So these are a few different ways that you can build your name and build your brand as an author, regardless of which publishing path you choose. Okay, so if you're wanting to pitch to agents and publishers, the first thing to do is really, I would say, go and look at the books that you enjoy and who's publishing those books. That's a really great way to start. And who are the agents of those writers? Because there's a good chance that if you're writing sci-fi and the agent of your favorite author is representing them, there's a good chance that that is what they specialize in. And so then you get to go to that agent's website and look and see what they are requesting at any given time. Agents tend to have there are genres that they like more than others. So for some, you'll clearly see they only do non-fiction, for example, or they only do poetry and art books, for example. Some might only do cookery books or walking books. And then in the fiction realm, there'll be those who maybe do speculative fiction, sci-fi, and fantasy. That's their big love, and that's what they want to see come in. Then there'll be others who really enjoy romance or women's fiction, and that's their speciality. So you really have to take the time to research agents and what they're looking for, and then look on their website. And I'd absolutely recommend, if you haven't already, that you put together a spreadsheet for this. This is where spreadsheets do come in useful. So you want to know, who is the agent that's representing the genres that you are writing in? What is their contact email address? And then you really need to be careful to look at their website and look at the submission guidelines, because they tend to be different for every single agency. Everybody seems to like a different way of doing it. Some will say you have to go through a platform like Submittable, and so that's a whole new thing. Others will say, send us an email, put your synopsis and first chapter in the body of the email. Others will say, put your synopsis, your letter, and your first 3 chapters as attachments in the email. And they'll all have their own font and font size and what they expect to see. So just double check that you are following the guidelines to the T, even if they seem ridiculous to you, because they get so many submissions each week, each month. If you give them any reason to not open it, then I think they take it because it just makes their life a bit easier. So make sure you follow them fully. Again, each one will be slightly different, but they'll want to have a synopsis. There might be some sample pages. There's the pitch letter itself, and of course, always looking for that compelling hook. I recommend, if you haven't already, getting on the mailing list of Jane Friedman. She's excellent when it comes to pitching to agents and publishers. She's kind of a bit of a guru on this. So it's well worth sort of getting into her world if you haven't already. Within your pitch, you're looking to highlight any relevant credentials you've got. So for example, if you are writing a medical thriller or a medical series of some description and you're a GP, you're a doctor of some sort, then, you know, make sure you add that in. If you are thinking of somebody who was writing a book about ice climbers, and her expertise, she was an ice climber herself, so she's got that expertise. So then the agent is going to go, oh, well, they're really going to know what they're talking about then. We'll get some insider perspective on whatever this topic is. And so you've already piqued their interest. You're already one step further along. If you've won any prizes, if you've met them at a convention or a conference somewhere along the line, if somebody has recommended that you get in touch with this particular agent, these are all things to mention and put in just to try and stand out a little bit from the crowd. Don't make stuff up because they'll soon realize that has been made up. And if you don't have any relevant credentials or you don't have any prizes, that is okay. That is fine as well. It's not a prerequisite by any means, but if you do have something, then that's really useful. And always be professional and gracious when rejected. Don't kind of email them back and say, what do you mean you didn't like it? Or what did you mean by this comment? Because you might want to submit book 2 to them, but they'll remember your name and they'll remember that you replied badly, and they won't want to take someone on who they might perceive as being difficult to work with. And if you get an R&R, a revise and reapply, then go for it. If you like the revisions they want to see, and you think that will work, then go for it and see what happens. You just never know. This is very much, I would say, a numbers game. You just have to keep applying, and eventually the right agent will come up with you for the right book. It might not be until your 5th book. A writer that I know, Imogen Clark, that was the same for her. It wasn't until she got her 5th book that finally things started happening for her. And then I think by the time she'd written her 10th book, you know, she was being picked up, and now she's writing under a pen name as well as her own name. So it just takes time. It just takes time. We've all got to kind of do our apprenticeship books. We've got to practice until we get to the place that we're ready to enter the public foray. So I see somebody put Jane Friedman's website. So yeah, go and have a look at that. Oops. Okay, choosing your path. So we are going to take 10 minutes. I want you to journal on this. I want you to think about these questions. What are your goals for your book? So the goal for your book might not be anything to do with how it's published. So if you can think about what it is you want to achieve with your book first, before you let marketing or advances kind of sway you, be thinking about that. And then also, you know, the time and resources that you can invest, how much control creatively is important to you, or actually is it not that important? You just want to see your name on that book and are happy to do what it takes. And are you genuinely prepared for the challenges of whichever path you take, of putting your book out into the world? And something to think about too is what happens if you do become the next J.K. Rowling? What happens if you do become the next Stephen King and suddenly your book takes off and you're transported, you become a public figure? Just be thinking about that, because it's not to say that it will or it won't happen, but if it does happen, do you want that to happen? Do you want to have a degree of fame, Or actually, would you not? Would you rather stay a little bit under the radar? So these are all interesting questions to just have a journal on, have a think about. And as you're journaling on it and thinking about it, the path, the right path might emerge, and it might not be the one that you initially thought. So take the 10 minutes. I've got 35 past the hour, so we'll go to 45. Yeah, and make that almost 45. So I thought I would just come in and look at some of the questions and comments that are in the chat. Just Simona, you were saying that you live in Spain. Lovely and warm. And write in English. I doubt whether I can go traditional in the local market. Simona, I think you've got a Spanish name. Are you Spanish? Like, is Spanish your first language? No. Okay. I suspect that as well. I don't think that you would be able to. I think Spain is very much a Spanish reading country. I think like if you go to somewhere like Germany or the Netherlands, India, even, there's a lot of English reading audiences there, but I think in Spain, that they would be looking for something in Spanish. So yeah, get it out there. If you're American or British or from another English speaking country, then submit there, try and find an agent in one of those territories, and then later they will sell the Spanish rights and you'll get the translations done, and it'll all be fabulous. So, but in terms of pay, or you can pay for help. I mean, that's something you could do, is pay for a translator. And more, it's getting better and better, but AI translation is getting better and better. And that's something that I'm certainly hearing about from other people, that they are using that, or they're hiring a translator who will do the bulk of it on AI, and then they just tidy up and correct it. So not only does that make it a lot quicker, but it also makes it cheaper as well to do. So I'm not saying go and do that just yet, but keep an eye out, because that might be something that's in the not too distant future, which I'm very excited about. Diane saying Ingram Spark is also good. Absolutely. And Ingram Spark, so with Ingram Spark, so if you were to publish on Amazon, you don't need to buy an ISBN number, an identifying number. They will give you their own one. If you go with Ingram Spark, you do need an ISBN rather than an ASIN from Amazon. But the good thing with Ingram Spark is that they can then get you, should you wish, into the catalogs that go out to the brick and mortar stores. So there's a good possibility that you can go in and request it from your local store, and if it's within that catalog, they can order it. Yeah, so good choice, good mention. Publish Drive, Jane, yes, Publish Drive. They are an aggregator and they will upload, and Drafts to Digital is another one. That's the one I use. GoDaddy is another, simple to use website platform as well. Yes, please, the mailing list. Great. I will I'll put that out and see what's coming back. Substack. So I'm a bit cautious about Substack. I know a lot of people have moved their stuff over there because they're trying to avoid Facebook and things. My thoughts on it is that it's a bit of a fad, and then something next will come along and everyone will move from Substack to somewhere else. I think Substack can be good for your newsletters. So if you've got a mailing list and you're doing your weekly newsletter and you want to put it out through Substack, I think that is a good way of doing it. If it's going to be something in addition to your weekly newsletter, then I think it is the same as a blog. It's just on a different platform. It's just formatted slightly differently, but essentially it is a blog, and you still need to do the thing about telling people about it and getting people to come in and read it, and ultimately then go and buy your books. So I'm not convinced by it, but I know a lot of people love it. So so you'll have to try it out. But I think it is just the same as doing a blog if it's in addition to your newsletter. Newsletter instead of a blog. I think a newsletter is much better than a blog, Devon, because you can make it just a bit more personal. It's a bit more friendly. It's just kind of like, people talk about it as if you're emailing a friend, and it's much more casual, whereas a blog is expected these days to be much more formal, formatted, images, links here, there, and everywhere. So I think a newsletter is a better option. And then people can reply to you directly and you can form that connection with your readers and they get to know you. And I think you'd be very good at that personal touch. Yvette's saying, what about quick posts daily? So do you mean daily on social media or a blog post daily? You can absolutely do all of those. Just know that it takes time. You've got to put the time and the energy, the mental energy into it. What am I going to talk about today? What images am I going to use today? So anything is possible, but just know that it does take time, and usually more time than you expect it to. Cindy's saying, I have several picture books published. I'm about to start submitting to publishers to agent with an adult novel. Do I put the picture books in the letter? Yes, I agree with Yvette that you do. You don't say too much about them. They don't need to know what the books are about. They don't need to know, details about them. But if I think you did say you'd published, if you've published 3, you could say I have published 3 children's picture books, and now I'm looking to move into the adult market. And that's all they need to know. If they're interested and they want to find out more, they'll either go to Google or they'll email you and ask you about it. But what that is indicating to them is, oh, she's in this for the long haul. She's keen. This isn't a one-hit wonder. This lady she wants a career. She's got longevity. So that, again, is kind of something that they'll consider. Have we got a future career with this person? So in Devon's goals, wants to be well read and change lives. You're looking to change lives, I think, Devon, with the stories that you tell so that people can heal. Yay. And you want to have creator control. And you're absolutely better prepared now that you've published 1 book already. You are on it. You are on it. And you see, this is a lovely example of Simona saying, she wanted to be able to give her grandson a published book written by his grandmother. And so people write for all different reasons. And what more beautiful reason is there for that? What a thing to cherish. I think that's amazing. My great-grandfather published a book. Actually, it was published posthumously. But again, it was just for his family. And it was about the island on which he grew up. And it's just, for those who are interested in that particular island, and then for his family. And I cherish it, absolutely cherish it. And I know that your grandson will as well. So yeah, give it away. Absolutely. That's such a good thing to do. And often what I've heard from people is that they give their books away, and when people enjoy it, they go and buy it again, because they know that you've put your heart and soul into it, and you're a small business, and so they will go and buy it as well. So that's great. So you've got a little bit of budget and you've got the time to devote to it. So you're in a really good place there to be able to do it. And yeah, creative control, but happy to pay for those professional services. So it does sound like indie is a good space for you, should you choose. Oh, but your full-length novel, you're far away from making a decision. Well, what a nice place to be in. Oh, you're Italian, Simona. James saying, it's the $1 million question, but I do lean towards self-publishing for many of the reasons outlined. Yeah. Marlena is saying, my first book was published traditionally in 1976, but things have changed so much. Well, congratulations on your publication. That's amazing. My most recent book was published by a small press, but I have to do all the marketing and I'm not very good at it. Now I'm writing a cozy mystery and I want to find an agent. You haven't said in this, Marlena, but I wonder what genre or type of book your first one was, because it sounds like you're mixing your genres, you're multi-passionate. And so that's, if you want to continue kind of doing varied things, small press or indie might be a good way to continue, so that you've got that freedom to write what you want when you want, rather than feeling constrained by what it is that the publisher is looking for at that time. Vet says, I'm willing to negotiate with the publisher when it comes to finalizing the book. Yeah. So that's good that you are kind of aware that needs to happen. But it sounds, from what you've kind of told me in the past as well, Yvette, or what I've seen you've written, you've got a lot of experience in all of these different areas. And so you can come to that with that knowledge and have be much stronger in knowing what you want and what you will willing to negotiate on, which is a great place to be. Born in Italy but grew up in South Africa. Oh, you're so international, Simona. Diane was also born in South Africa. Use 2 websites if you're using a pen name or my name. Yeah, that is recommended, isn't it? And mostly it is recommended, but I've heard somebody kind of sort of say the opposite to that you don't need 2 websites, but you do need 2 names. And so really, as long as the names are different, so that when someone is searching on Google or on Amazon or wherever, that no matter what name they use, they'll come to your website. So you could have both on one site, so you only have to maintain and pay for one. But it's depending on how simple your site is, you could absolutely have 2. Yeah, autobiographical, that won't affect your publishing path. It's just how true is it and what do you say about people in it? Rick. So that's a decision you get to make. Yeah, Simone is asking, will anyone apart from your family know? You know, if I was to read a book from you, by you, I wouldn't know what was autobiographical and what wasn't. So yeah, it all depends. Yeah, so Marlena's, you've written across all different types, fiction, non-fiction. So some things to be thinking about there about whether actually, if you want to continue with that variety, small press or indie might be the way forward. Good old JK. Something I did want to just mention, 2 things I wanted to mention before we wrap up. I know we're getting there. Actually, it fits in with you. There's no single path to publication, to choose the one that works for you. And so what I wanted to add in here is that I'm seeing more and more people swinging both ways. So a lot of people who are in the traditional space and they're maybe a mid-lister, but they're doing quite well. They've realized they've got an audience, they've got a fan base already. And really that's the important thing. So their name has become enough to sell the book. We're not talking, you know, top bestsellers here, but their name is enough to sell the book. And they've maybe got a mailing list and they're keeping in touch, or they're good on social media, whatever it might be. And so they're realizing that they can take that brand, that name, and they can move into the indie space. And a lot of people are doing that because they know how it works. They know that they can pay for somebody to put the book together, do the book cover, and they already have their audience. And so they can tell their audience about this new book that's coming out, and the audience will buy it. So there's a lot of people moving traditional to indie and staying with their traditional too. So they've got a foot in both camps. But then also on the other side, there's a lot of indies who are doing well and selling more books than the traditional writers and are being picked up by the traditional people because they're recognizing that there's an audience. It's probably like, I'm thinking of Colleen Hoover in particular, who doesn't write well at all. But she's got a huge fan base. People love her stories. They love her characters. And so they're buying them by the droves. And as a result of that, you know, she's gone on to publish traditionally and of course have this movie come out and do hugely well. Mark Dawson is a UK crime writer. He's sold millions of books on his own as an indie, and of course traditional were like, we'd like a piece of that please. So he's got both. He's got a foot in both camp as well. So it's all changing, it's all in flux, and we just don't know what's going to happen next. And of course AI is coming into the mix, whether we like it or not. It's there, it's growing, it's not going to go away. So that's going to change things again. But just, I know we're at the top of the hour, but just very quickly, if you have time to stay, just to say as well about direct selling. This is a growing market as well. So people are selling their books directly from their website and bypassing Amazon, bypassing the traditional booksellers. So that's kind of changing things as well and opening up the whole market in an amazing way. So it's there for everybody who wants it. So stay persistent, keep working on your craft, keep working on your storytelling, and I promise you, you're closer to sharing your story with the world than you think. You are getting there day by day, word by word. It's coming together. So thank you so much. Colleen Hoover says she's stopping writing. I'm sure she won't stop writing unless she's not enjoying the writing. But if she's enjoying it, I'm sure she'll carry on or maybe go in a different direction. You're so welcome, everybody. It has been an awesome week. I've really enjoyed it. It's flown in. So let me know if there's anything else you want to learn about that would be useful. If you've got questions, put them in the Facebook group. I pop in there most days. Yes. Happy Valentine's, everybody. And I shall see you all around the interweb. Lovely to see you all. Take care. Bye.